South Carolina is who we're going to look at next.
Beamer ball.
Yeah, another coach that both of us back earlier put on the hot seat.
I did. But I think he can do better than 3-9, though. Let's be honest. By the way, don't have all the details, but Kaisen Painting, the owner there, Sal Sanchez, I think just welcomed a baby into the family. So shout out to Sal and the family out there. And I say I don't have all the details because I can't remember if it was a boy or girl or anything like that. And I don't know if it was this week or last week, but definitely keep them in the thoughts and prayers for obviously healthy delivery and a healthy baby. So congratulations. So let's talk about South Carolina. Old Dominion, week 1. That's a loss. I'm joking. That's a win for South Carolina. Beamer ball, he's weird, man. He gives off weird vibes, does he not?
Oh yeah.
But I want him to stay at South Carolina because we have his number. So, by all means, whatever you can do to lose to Tennessee and keep your job, I'm all for it. But in this year alone, we actually do not play South Carolina. So, week 2, newsflash, you go straight to Kentucky. I mean, that's pretty quick as far as starting SEC play. I mean, usually you're talking maybe week 3, week 4 in the season, but they start SEC play right out the gates in week 2, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that their last game of the season is against Clemson and not an SEC foe. So, but I've got Kentucky losing. I've got South Carolina beating Kentucky out the gate. Now you're like, whoa, why is that? And you're very valid to ask that question because Kentucky, if we all know, is basically Super Bowl champions until about week 6 of every regular season.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Why are you laughing? Yeah. They go undefeated every year for the first 6 weeks, and then shit hits the fan. Sorry, excuse my language. Yeah, this year is not going to be like that. Mark Stoops going to be in for a rude awakening, I think, in my opinion. They dropped this game to South Carolina, so shout out to South Carolina. South Carolina's going to need this, by the way. Look at their schedule. I mean, it doesn't get that they are lucky they drew Vanderbilt. I'll be honest. I mean, every SEC team this year was praying they got Vanderbilt on their schedule so they could get their win. But LSU, they get LSU at home. Very intriguing to see how home field plays in this game. But I have LSU actually beating South Carolina. But I do feel like, again, LSU's hard to predict this year. And this could be a big swing game for South Carolina. I'm going to say that about pretty much every game that LSU plays because I have no idea what to expect out of LSU. But Brian Kelly's done decent there in every season, so I have to believe that he's at least going to have a decent record, maybe an 8-4 season. But no, I got LSU winning this game. Then they go into Akron. I think that's an easy win. They start out 3-1, feeling pretty good about themselves, which is great because the next 4 games are absolutely atrocious as they're going to drop to Ole Miss. They are then going to go on the road to Alabama, in which they're going to drop that game as well. And then they go back to – this is probably one of the worst back-to-back road trips you can have. At Alabama and then turn around and go at Oklahoma. They're losing both those games. And now this is where you got the – and it's not really even Shane Beamer's fault because it's a tough schedule, but it is kind of his fault because he's weird. But then you welcome Texas A&M, in which you have to have this game. Have to have this game to kind of settle the waters a little bit. And I don't think they got the game. I think A&M's – I think this is going to be is it Mike Elko at A&M?
Yep.
This is going to be one of his big wins, I think, in his first year at Texas A&M. I think they're going to beat South Carolina. So South Carolina is going to drop one there. They go at Vanderbilt. Congratulations. You get to go check out the new venue at Vanderbilt, like a solid $3 million renovation.
Hey, Vanderbilt did get their scoreboard up. I saw that this past week.
Oh, my goodness. Tennessee Football 247 says, go Vols, dude. We missed you in the comment section lately, man. Thank you for coming back on the YouTube, man. We really do appreciate you tuning in. We're talking season predictions, man. We're doing this kind of up until football season, and we're only, I think, like 7 Saturdays away. Either way. Good to have you back, Bubba. But Vanderbilt, no, I was chuckling at their $3 million renovation. I don't know what the actual number is, but I know Tennessee was just doing like $100 million or $200 million. So I was kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Vanderbilt, they get the win there. Missouri, I think they get the loss. Hosting Missouri. I do think Missouri's a solid program right now. Then they got Wofford. I think it's a win. in which they'll lose to Clemson at Clemson. Clemson's just the better team in the state, unfortunately, of the Carolinas. And Shane Beamer finishes 5-7. They finish 2-6 in the SEC. And then I just got a question mark. I mean, I don't know. I don't know with South Carolina standards if that's good enough for Shane Beamer, if that's good enough for the program, or if it's time to kind of move on from Shane Beamer. But that's what I have South Carolina going. And Beamer's third or fourth season there. I don't know. I don't feel like, again, with South Carolina, I don't feel this massive upward trajectory. I don't feel a lot of momentum building this all season like you typically hear. I mean, all season, everybody's a champion of the all season, but like in the buzz and the SEC talks and whatnot, South Carolina's just not been there. Kind of like Arkansas, just kind of in the shadows. So I don't know what to expect out of South Carolina. But this is what I think as far as, I guess, an okay scenario. I mean, I don't know if they could do much better. I think maybe Clemson, because that's a big rivalry game. A&M would be A&M and LSU. I guess if I had to say three most important games of their schedule, it's LSU, A&M, and Clemson, right? Wrong? Indifferent?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, my God. We got a second agreement from Justin. Oh, my goodness. We are doing something right tonight, baby. Justin says, I agree. 5-7. He might not agree on the games that I chose, and that's totally fine. But I'm solid with that. Hey, look, I take it. Basically, go ahead and chalk it up. South Carolina, your season's over. It's 5-7.
Yeah, I'll get into mine now. And I find this schedule, as brutal as any SEC schedule is, this one to me is not quite as brutal as some we've seen, because you do get the Oklahoma draw, which is, he agrees on the games too. So
that's a cherry on top, brother.
Hey, you're doing something right there.
I agree with you on your point, though. You got Oklahoma and Texas. You're guaranteed one of those teams. You would absolutely rather have Oklahoma, but they have to go to Oklahoma.
That's true. But, and yes, you do have to go to Alabama. You do get Ole Miss this year, but you don't have to play Georgia. You don't have to play Tennessee.
It's workable. Their schedule is absolutely workable.
But when you look at the rest of the teams and the trajectory that they are going, how well is South Carolina going to do? I've got a win in week 1 against Old Dominion. I do think that this game is going to be important because, last year you had North Carolina in week 1 in the game in Charlotte for the, I guess, Mayo Classic or whatever. That was a bad start to your season. You took a loss there, and it kind of set the trajectory for the rest of the year. Getting a tune-up game against Old Dominion before going into conference play in weeks 2 and 3, I think, is a big help. I'm going to say that they lose to Kentucky in week 2.
Understandable.
I think that
Kentucky should be, 5-0 to start their year or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that if this game was in Columbia, South Carolina, I give a little bit more advantage to South Carolina. I still think Kentucky would get a win there. I just like Stoops better as a coach than Beamer. But I think going to Kentucky, this is a game that Kentucky is going to win. LSU week 3, you do get them at home. Intriguing game, but I think LSU actually wins this one handily against South Carolina. She starts the season.
We're feeling low on South Carolina. I understand, dude. I understand, but like if they don't, I mean, they start out 0-2 in the SEC, brother. They ain't gonna get much. But go ahead.
Yeah, we'll see where they're at. Akron in week 4, that's going to be a win. You mentioned earlier this stretch right here it's brutal. You welcome in Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's going to take one from you there. You go to Alabama. No matter who the coach is, that's a tough game. You're going to take a loss there. And then traveling to Oklahoma, I think you're also going to take a loss there.
That's an Cocktober to forget. Honestly, that is not a good month.
Yeah, I've got a win against Texas A&M at home.
Boy. They needed something, bro, because that's rough.
Yeah, I mean, I think you take you're coming off a bye week. You're welcoming in Texas A&M to your house, and South Carolina. Bryce Williams Stadium, underrated environment compared to some of the other SEC stadiums. You know, you got the sandstorm going on. It is a tough place to play. I think that South Carolina can pull this one out. We don't know what direction Mike Elko is going to have that program going at this point. I do think that they drop a game this year that, you know, you probably would think that they would win. I think this game is that game for Texas A&M. So I've got South Carolina winning. You go on a little 2-game win streak here as you do get a win at Vanderbilt. Then you got the rivalry game. And did you know that this is actually a rivalry game against Missouri?
I mean, I thought I knew South Carolina, Missouri was always a good matchup, but I thought it was because they were always kind of like bottom feeders of the SEC. I kind of put them, you know, South Carolina, Missouri, Kentucky, kind of like in their own little circle. And then Tennessee was always in the middle. And then typically you had Florida and Georgia at the top, at least in my childhood growing up, because we sucked in my childhood. But no, I didn't realize that this was like actually a rivalry. I thought that was kind of like more Missouri, Arkansas.
So once Missouri came into the league, they made this a rivalry game because it's the Battle of Columbia's.
Missouri, I knew that. Okay,
yeah. Missouri is in Columbia.
Yeah, I got you.
So they actually have a trophy or a plaque or something that they give out to the winner of this game too. So,
so this would have been their second game or whatever that they would have kept. You know, with the schedule changes, like I guess that almost bookmarks that South Carolina will always play Missouri. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, at least they're going to try to. Depending on what happens in the upcoming talks. But Missouri is just a better team this year. Drinkwitz has got that program
so much, dude.
Yes. I mean, literally the only person that you don't return is Cody Schrader. I mean, you're bringing back Luther Burden. You're bringing back Brady Cook. I think you did lose a couple of guys on the line, but you brought in some guys as well. So South Carolina going to take a loss to Missouri. You pick up a win against Wofford before, unfortunately, you dropped the last game of the season to Clemson. So I said going in before I looked at the schedule, South Carolina going 4-8, but then I started going through it and I was like, I can see 5-7. So
yeah, dude. Hey, Robert just tuned in. Hey guys, finally able to catch your show live. Love hearing you talk SEC football. For the Gamecocks, week 2 is a must win. I agree. Versus Kentucky, if they lose, is another losing season and no bowl game. And it's hard for me to find a bowl game even if they beat Kentucky, because beating Kentucky and A&M would be great, you know, best case scenario, because, you know, I don't know if you can pull one out against any of your other SEC opponents. I mean, I really don't, you know, other than Vanderbilt for sure. I think Kentucky, LSU, and Clemson. Hear me out. Kentucky, LSU, Clemson. You may can slide in A&M at there. But those 4 games are massive for Shane Beamer this year if they want to make a bowl game, in my opinion. But, Robert, we appreciate the kind words, man. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube. I love the fact that you're all listening, man. It makes us happy, dude. We really appreciate it. But we're talking South Carolina schedule predictions. We both actually have South Carolina going 5-7, but kind of vastly different ways. I have them beating Kentucky. Michael has them beating A&M. Could they find a way to beat them both to go 6-6? That would be Shane Beamer's biggest test, I think.
Yeah, so I think on the low end this season, you're going to see, you know, I mentioned it in the Vanderbilt one. We don't know exactly what direction Vanderbilt's going to go either. And this is if the wheels absolutely fall off for South Carolina. I think it's 3-9 is where they go.
Okay, but hear me out about Vanderbilt. Didn't they pick up a solid quarterback in the portal?
Yes, Diego, I can't remember his last name, from New Mexico State. He was
who beat Auburn.
Yes, and he was the is it the WAC or the Mountain West, whatever conference New Mexico State is in. He was the player of the year last year. But here's the thing. Is Vanderbilt going to have the weapons around him to have success?
To be fair, they had some decent weapons last year, and they just couldn't get him the ball. Remember, we were talking about the return guys, and then they were trying to utilize him, kind of like we were trying to utilize D. Williams.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't get him the ball. So no, that one is. Justin chimes in on the Facebook. He said best case scenario 7-5, and he gets LSU and A&M a win. maybe.
I think that's where I'm going to agree with Justin. You know, I said wheels falling off. The worst case is 3-9 for South Carolina this year. I think best case is 7-5. You know, you got the 5 wins that I say here, and you add in Kentucky, and then
LSU.
I'm actually going to disagree with LSU. I think that Clemson would be that one,
because that rivalry there at the end of the, especially if they're playing that game for a bowl game, they would actually be fighting pretty hard for that game. I would think. So no, I don't disagree with you there. I'm gonna say worst case 4-8. I'm not gonna go 3-9 on them. I do think they get 4 wins. Wofford, Old Dominion, Akron is 3 right there, and I think they beat Vanderbilt.
I agree with you.
If they don't, they better beat Kentucky, A&M, or Clemson. They got to find one somewhere. So I think their floor is 4-8. I do think their ceiling is 7-5. If South Carolina comes out with a quarterback that is better than Spencer Rattler, which I have a hard time believing. Spencer Rattler, his last 2 seasons, South Carolina was carrying that team, kind of like Jaden Daniels was for LSU. Spencer Rattler was statistically one of the best quarterbacks, the last year, and just didn't have a team to help him out. So I'm kind of intrigued to see what it is, but I do think their best case scenario is 7-5. So 4-8 to 7-5. We both have them going 5-7. But again, just trying to fish out these games, win the games you're absolutely supposed to win, and then win half your toss-up games. That's best case scenario for South Carolina.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look real quick who the quarterback is going to be this year. You do have redshirt freshman Lenore Sellers on the squad.
Heard a lot about him.
I have too. Heard a lot of good things about him.
He's going to be the starter, though.
You did also bring in Auburn transfer Robbie Ashford.
That's probably more likely your starter. Because isn't Robbie Ashford now probably a junior at this point? I don't know.
He is a redshirt senior.
Redshirt. Okay, yeah, even older than that. I didn't realize he was at Auburn for a little while. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see from Shane Beamer's squad what they can do. But that Kentucky game early in the season is definitely a big one. And A&M for sure a big one.
All right, let's play this game for Shane Beamer. What schedule or what record does he have to get to this year to maintain his job? Because there's not a lot of people, saying Shane Beamer is gone after this year. He is. Let's see. At least South Carolina does get LSU at home. That is true. Who knows what that defense is going to look like, even with them getting Blake Baker in.
I said that. I said LSU is such a big question mark, dude. LSU could literally go from like a 4-8 to heck, they could be 10-2. Like I don't know what LSU has this year, and I'm gonna have to like dig deep, maybe even follow some of the pages, but I don't want to do that honestly. But I don't know where they're at, bro. Like Jaden Daniels carried that team to a 9-win season last year. I believe that's what they got after the bowl game. But either way, their defense was atrocious, man. So if South Carolina has a good offensive game plan, it could be a shootout. I think every game with LSU, depending on what the defense is like, could be a shootout. It's like the first team to 35 points wins. Like I don't know, but we'll see.
But anyway, back to what I was saying there. What record do you think Shane Beamer has to get to keep his job? Not a lot of people are saying he'll lose it after this year, but I personally think that he's on the hot seat and could very well lose his job at the end of the season.
I think this question. Oh, our buddy done joined us. Woods, Water, and Mizzou podcast. How we doing? He said MIZ, and I'm not finishing it, brother. Can't do it. Nope, not until I get a GBO or a good old one of those. You got to send me a picture of that right there. I might finish it. But anyways, so I guess to answer your question, brother, 7-5 with the schedule, I think is solid for South Carolina program. Their expectations in no way is to win the SEC or to even be in the playoff, right? The South Carolina expectations, I think, is kind of equivalent or parallel to Kentucky, right? Be competitive in these games, get us 7 wins. And so I think 7-5 solid as far as to keep his job. Now, 7-5, maybe kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, great, we went 7-5, we were competitive, but we're going to need a little bit more out of that. But I don't think he gets fired for going 7-5. Okay. Pop's done joined in. Jeremy said, I got here late. Shame on you, brother. South Carolina over Ole Miss. Come on. Lane got to get more respect. Wait, what? I think he's joking. He was actually concerned. You said something on the last podcast. You said we would talk about it on Ole Miss's schedule. You mentioned something about Lane Kiffin was not going to be at Ole Miss next year.
Yep.
And he said he watched the whole show just to see if he'd go back to it, and you never did. He was kind of heartbroken about that because he wants to know what you were talking about that.
Lane Kiffin after this season is going to take another job. And
Florida? I mean,
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You heard it here first for the 5 people watching.
Yeah. I think it depends on some of the offseason moves made elsewhere, but I don't think Lane Kiffin's going to be back at Ole Miss. I think he's going to take another job somewhere, and might that be Florida? We'll see. Now, personally, I don't want that. You never know.
There's no way Ohio State fires Ryan Day, bro. There's no way. I almost want them to lose to Michigan just to see if they would do it. If they go 11-1, all right, this ain't about Ohio State, but whatever. Anyways,
yeah, but no, that's what I meant by that statement. I think he's going to take a job somewhere else after this season.
Yeah, so he's not getting fired. It'll be on his terms, which that's typically how it is with Lane Kiffin. So,
oh no, I mean, Ole Miss, they will keep him around as long as he wants to be there because of the success that he has had. Lane Kiffin does not want to be at Ole Miss long term, though.
Well, it's hard going to a home game when you only can sit 60,000 or whatever it is there.
Yeah.
Here we go. See, now we're getting. I love it when people chime into the comments, baby. Robert on YouTube. Robert, man, we miss you, brother. He said, "Here's the biggest question: what week will Beamer lose his cool and hurt himself again?"
Kentucky, week 2.
100%. 100%. All right, if it's not Kentucky, it's LSU or Akron.
Yeah.
Why Akron? I don't know. I just feel like there's going to be some special teams mishap at Akron and that he might lose his cool. I don't know. No, I think Kentucky could be one, but now I have them beating Kentucky, I think. So, it's definitely, if I had to bet over and under, like before October or after, I'm taking before, 100%.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say
5 to answer your question. 75.
I'm gonna say 6-6 saves the season because
probably
you mentioned it. South Carolina does not have the expectations that a lot of other schools have in the SEC. Steve Spurrier did raise those expectations some when he was there. I mean, it's incredible what he did at South Carolina when he was there. But then it kind of fell back down whenever you had Will Muschamp come in. And really, I think Shane Beamer's job was just to at least be bowl eligible. If you can get 8 wins, if you can get 9 wins, great. But at least be bowl eligible. I think that's the expectations of South Carolina. So I think that 6-6 saves his job.